Let's talk a little bit about Israel.
Jew Harold Wallace Rosenthal explained, "Our power has been created through the manipulation of the national monetary system. The Federal Reserve System fitted our plan nicely since it is owned by us, but the name implies that it's a government institution. From the very outset, our purpose was to confiscate all the gold and silver, replacing them with worthless, non-redeemable paper notes. We, Jews, have put issue upon issue to the American people. Then we promote both sides of the issue as confusion reigns. With their eyes fixed on the issue, they fail to see who is behind every scene. We Jews glory in the fact that the stupid Goy have never realized that we are the parasites, consuming an increasing portion of production, while the producers are continually receiving less and less."
Let's talk a little bit about Israel.
Regardless of England's reason or intentions were, self-serving or otherwise, Crusades 2000 was set in motion by the 1917 Balfour Declaration that laid the foundation for Israel.
It's 67 words long, it's 100 years old, and it changed the course of history for the Middle East and the Jewish people. The Balfour Declaration, the expression of the British government's support for a Jewish home in Palestine, was sent by British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to the second Lord Rothschild.
November the 2nd, 1917. Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet.
And I wonder if I could possibly ask you to read it for us.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I'm going to put on my spectacles to make sure I read it accurately. His Majesty's government.
His Majesty's government views with favor the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people and will use their best endeavors to facilitate the achievements of this object. His Majesty's government. What's this His Majesty's crap? What majesty? Who you talking to? Like that little clown you got over there now, Prince Charles? Oh, King Charles. Here, King. Here, boy. Oh, look at all my medals. I'm a majesty. What the hell are you doing over there in Palestine? You called it Palestine, Majesty. You're the British. Oh, why, Salenti? The sun never sets on the British Empire. We could kill and slaughter anybody that we want all over the world.
Israel is one of the most racist countries in the world. While you'll never hear anyone in the mainstream media say this, this is actually one of the most important things you need to understand if you want to know what's happening right now. One of the founders of Israel, Yosef Weitz, wrote, "There's no room in the country for both peoples. There's no way but to transfer the Arabs from here to neighboring countries." Israel was quite literally founded by expelling and massacring hundreds of thousands of Arabs in a years-long process called the Nakba.
I said, hold up, wait a minute, something ain't right.
75 years ago, a horrific event forever changed the lives of Palestinians. In 1948, militias attacked, bombed, and massacred entire towns and cities all over Palestine, forcing nearly 75% of the Palestinian population to flee to safety, separating families and destroying entire communities. Palestinians call this the Nakba, an Arabic word that means catastrophe.
Something most of us are forced to learn about in the West is the Jewish Holocaust, especially information centered around the Nazi-built concentration camps. According to the Holocaust Memorial website, some of the worst atrocities in human history were committed there. Now, isn't it ironic that only a few short years after the alleged Holocaust, post-World War II Zionist Jews would imprison tens of thousands of Palestinian civilians, including women and children, within 22 Zionist-run concentration and labour camps that existed from 1948 to 1955. Not only that, but many of them were systematically murdered and tortured. You would think something like this would never be allowed to happen, especially since the inception of the United Nations, especially after World War II. And you would be wrong. This information is particularly important because for many years, largely due to cover-up, a lot of the information I'm about to share with you was considered to be nothing more than an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Thanks to the declassification of Israeli war documents in 1999 that were largely ignored, and an in-depth investigation conducted by the Journal of Palestinian Studies, we now have a lot of information that proves the events that took place in the years between 1948 to 1955. To quote Brett Wilkins on the topic, who wrote a story about the Lydia Death March back in 2018, quote, "In late 1947, Britain, worn down by a ferocious Jewish terror campaign led by men who included future Israeli Prime Ministers Menachem Begin and Yitzhak Shamir, announced it would end its 30-year occupation of Palestine. The Palestine problem would now be for the fledgling United Nations to solve, and, to that end, the world body devised a plan to partition the territory between Jews and Arabs. The latter, the Palestinians, were not consulted. Under the United Nations plans, Jews, who comprised just under a third of Palestine's population at the time, were given 55% of the land." Unquote. In July 1948, after David Ben-Gurion illegally announced Israel's independence upon the departure of the British troops, Israeli troops forcefully compelled the entire population of almost 60,000 Palestinian civilians to flee from their homes in Lydia in the middle of the hot Mediterranean summer. After capturing Lydia from the east, they were to advance on Ramallah, attacking it from the north while making feints against it from the west. Lydia and Ramallah were bombed from the air. When many of the native inhabitants refused to leave, or couldn't, Israeli Prime Minister, at the time, David Ben-Gurion, gave the orders to ethnically cleanse both towns. Most of the expellees were women, children and elderly men, as most of the able-bodied men were taken into concentration and work camps. The Ben-Gurion guidelines to the Israeli Defense Force had specified there were to be no robbery, but numerous sources spoke of widespread looting. The Economist wrote on the 21st of August that year, the Arab refugees were systematically stripped of all their belongings before they were sent on their trek to the frontier. Household belongings, stores, clothing, all had to be left behind. Unquote. There were also allegations that Israeli soldiers had raped Palestinian women. Israeli writer Amos Keenan, who served as a platoon commander of the 82nd Regiment of the Israeli Army Brigade that conquered Lydia, told the Nation on the 6th of February 1989 that, quote, "At night time, those of us who couldn't restrain ourselves would go into the prison compound to fuck Arab women. I want very much to assume, and perhaps even can, that those who couldn't restrain themselves did what they thought the Arabs would have done to them had they won the war." Unquote. Israeli documents and testimonies of former civilian internees suggest that the total number of prisoners of war and civilian internees may have been significantly greater than indicated by the International Red Cross reports. So it's quite possible that the stuff that we're talking about today, that things are actually a lot worse than what's actually been revealed to us in a lot of this documentation. What isn't known is the total number of people that were murdered. What we do have, though, is an interesting quote by a man called Yeshua Gorodenchik, a member of the Israeli military force at the time, who admitted to at least one whole prison population being murdered. Quote, "We had prisoners, and before the retreat we decided to liquidate them. We also liquidated the wounded. We eliminated every Arab we came across up to that point." Unquote.
Before the Nakba, Palestine was a vibrant place where Palestinians of many faiths and walks of life lived in harmony. Since then, Israel has continued to murder Palestinians, destroy their homes, and steal their land over and over again. The injustices Israel inflicts on Palestinians through its brutal apartheid system are the direct result of the horrific violence of the Nakba. Today, the Israeli government still has the same goal as the militias who massacred Palestinian families in 1948: to wipe Palestinians off the map. Literally. The Nakba started 75 years ago, and for the millions of Palestinians who Israel won't let return, those whose homes it continues to destroy, those whose land it continues to steal, and those whose loved ones it hasn't stopped killing, it's still their reality today. Palestinians want their freedom and to live in their homeland.
And when you found a country based on racial exclusion, you're gonna get a culture that fosters and celebrates racial exclusion.
Rabbi Manis Friedman from St. Paul was apparently answering the question, how should Jews treat their Arab neighbors? He told Moment magazine, quote, "The only way to fight a moral war is the Jewish way. Destroy their holy sites. Kill men, women, and children.
Kill all men and all women, me'olel ve'ad yonek, even babies who breastfeed, all oxes, all goats, camels, donkeys. Don't leave anything, any memory from this filthy nation."
Every day you can find videos coming out of Israel showing Israelis calling for all Arabs to die. Desecrating mosques, spitting on Christians, mocking and celebrating the murder of Palestinians, committing violent hate crimes against Palestinians, watching Gaza get carpet bombed from a cliffside for entertainment. Not only are these views widely held in Israeli society, they're also represented in government, which codifies these sentiments into law. In 2018, Israel passed the nation-state law, a law which has constitutional status, which says the right to exercise national self-determination, i.e. have rights, is the exclusive right of Jews, no one else. There's also the Nakba law, which makes it illegal to acknowledge the Nakba, the expulsions of Palestinians that were needed to found Israel. This would be like passing a law to make it illegal to talk about indigenous genocide or slavery in America.
Let's talk a little bit about Israel.
What is your secret? Because we don't seem to have the hang of that.
The secret is that we have America. ארצות הברית זה לא מקשה אחת, זה לא מקשה אחת. יש את הסנאט, יש את הקונגרס, יש את הכוח היהודי שהוא עצום, יותר חזק משהיה אי פעם. יש דעת קהל, יש לנו כוחות כבירים בדעת הקהל שמתנגדים למדיניות הזאת, גדולי הפרשנים. אמריקה לא תכפה לנו דבר, אם לא נרצה.
CNIF alleges Israel receives so much aid and special treatment because the U.S. Congress is controlled by AIPAC, America's pro-Israeli lobby.
And this relationship, from Truman to Trump, is a tradition of supporting Israel deeply. And I think about that every day as I serve as America's Secretary of State.
Always included a Republican lead sponsor because the foundation of our relationship must remain bipartisan as it has been for decades.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kotowski works at the Pentagon and says Israel receives preferential treatment.
We do not question what the Israelis want.
When I was a young senator, I say, if I were a Jew, I'd be a Zionist. I am a Zionist. You don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist.
For as long as I have the privilege of serving in the Senate from New York, I will unflinchingly, unstintingly, and with all of my strength be Shomer Yisrael, a guardian of Israel.
We will always stand with Israel first and foremost, so everybody understands that very clearly.
Israel has always been a strong ally of ours, and I appreciate that. I voted just this week to give money, more money to them through the Iron Dome.
We stand with the democratic state of Israel. And this is why today I come before you to support the $225 million in additional funding.
All right, well, let me just tell you that Israel is a very, very important ally of the United States, and we are going to protect them 100%. 100%. They've been our most reliable. It's our true friend over there, and we're going to protect Israel 100%.
Israel should never be a partisan issue, and as long as I'm a United States Senator, I will do everything in my power to ensure broad and bipartisan support.
We are the most natural of allies, and like Israel itself, that alliance is forever.
Thank you, Democrats and Republicans, for your common support for Israel, year after year, decade after decade. No matter on which side of the aisle you sit, you stand with Israel.
If this capital crumbled to the ground, the one thing that would remain is our commitment to Israel.
You got it. You got it. It's a crime syndicate. Backing from the West? What? Sending more weapons of death? backing from the West.
Israel's been working hard to cast itself as the victim of hatred, the victim of terrorism, the victim of anti-Semitism, that they have no choice but to lay siege to Gaza. But underneath this carefully concocted victim complex is a racist, Jewish supremacist state that's been trying to finish the job that the Nakba started for decades. They're literally cutting off water and electricity to a city of 2 million people right now.
Let's talk a little bit about Israel.